How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. There's been a lot of talk lately about the price of Mopars, the price of classic cars, building a Mopar, the cost of building a Mopar, and they are substantially more than building a Chevrolet, for instance. But there are ways to do it inexpensive if you don't open a catalog and just start buying parts left and right. What I used to do, or what I still do, what I prefer to do, is barter. I know this can't be done in all situations or many situations, but I have done a lot of it to keep costs down on the projects that I've had or that I have now. I don't have to be the fastest guy out there. I don't have to be have the shiniest car, the prettiest car. I just like drivers, so that makes it substantially easier. I do my own work, and it makes it easy doing it that way. It keeps costs down a lot. Now, one example that I have is I had a 71 Duster. It was a 340 car, and I purchased that car from a buddy of mine who purchased it from my cousin. But what I did with that, there were components of the car that I didn't that I wanted to change. So through multiple bartering deals, I was able to get the car for the most part where I wanted it. Now, of course, I changed my mind 10 times and changed the direction I went with the car 10 times to the point where I didn't even finish the car. But that's another story. So, but what I did, I ended up trading there was a 68 or 69 Valiant that I was kind of tracking down. It was a street racer, I guess you can call it, in the Milwaukee area. And the car sat for a long time. I eyeballed this car. It had a lot of components. I didn't want the car. The car was actually pretty rough. But what I did, it had a lot of components that I wanted for my Duster. So I kind of set my sights on it, contacted the guy that owned the car, and turned out he was a truck guy. He had no interest in having the car. So I was like, perfect. Specifically, he wanted an old Dodge truck to put a Cummins in. So I knew of a gentleman that had a 48 Power Wagon. This particular person was heavily into tractors, old tractors, things like that. And at the time, I was into that as well. So I saw an opportunity to, all right, I have these tractors that I don't particularly care for anymore. I'm going to see if I could swap this guy for this 48 Power Wagon and see if I can get that Valiant from the guy. Now, I know those things have jumped in price substantially. Looking back, I maybe should have kept it, but I did get the parts that I wanted for my Duster at the time. So I ended up getting the 48 Power Wagon, and the guy that had the Valiant, he didn't want to do the deal just on the 48 Power Wagon. So I had another truck. It was actually my Power Ram. I called it my mud truck. I actually posted a couple videos on the channel of jumping and going through the mud and things like that. But I had this truck, had a blown motor, but it had a 4-inch lift, and it was a clean truck. So I'm like, all right, 48 Power Wagon, the truck I'm not doing anything with, would you be interested in swapping for that? Sure enough, he did want to do the deal on the Valiant. So we did the deal. I swapped the tractors for the 48 Power Wagon. The truck actually never even left the guy's house. The guy got the Valiant from, just backed his trailer up and picked it up there. And I ended up getting a built 340 that was in the car, an 8 3/4. It was actually out of a 73 B body with the purchase moved slightly. So I had my large bolt pattern. My Duster already had a large bolt pattern in the front. It was converted to disc. And had a few other go fast goodies, and I pulled the stuff that I wanted out of the car and I ended up selling the shell. It had fiberglass front fenders and I think a fiberglass hood. And the person that ended up getting it actually ended up turning the car back into a driver. I think they put a slant six in it. But long story short, if I didn't have the patience to do that, I never would have bought the parts for my Duster. I didn't want to spend the money for, or I couldn't at the time, spend the money for the large pattern axles and things like that to do the conversion that I wanted to do to the Duster. So through some bartering, I was able to make that happen and keep the car affordable. My Dart I acquired years ago. I did a little bit of bartering and some money for that. And between now granted the Duster and the Cuda I've had them for a long time. But I have less in all three, in my Duster, in my Dart, and my Barracuda. I have less in all three of those cars than most people pay for, lately anyway, pay for one. So whenever I am looking for something and I want something specific, or maybe I lose interest in a Dart, I always look for something specific, and then you never know. Maybe the person that has whatever I'm looking for, maybe they want a Dart, and they just want to do an even swap. Whenever I've lost interest in a Dart, I've almost swapped that car about 4 or 5 times, but I just couldn't let it go. Another thing that I find is if I buy and sell parts, which I have done, if I have the money in my pocket, chances are I'm going to spend it. One of the reasons that I do bartering is so I don't have that money in my pocket and spend it on something I don't need, rather than the target for doing whatever I'm trying to do with my cars. So another thing is if I have the money in my pocket, if I sell a car, chances are that money's going to go into something like bills. And that's just no fun. Responsible, yes. Fun, no. And then it kind of keeps the hobby alive, keeping the fun aspect of it. So I hope you got something out of this. Always ask. I always ask if bartering is even on the table. I've had more people say yes than no, and you'll be surprising what people barter for. It doesn't necessarily have to be a car. It doesn't necessarily have to be car parts. ATVs. I traded an ATV for an A-body. It's all over the map. You'll be surprising what people will trade for when they lose interest in a project or a car itself. So I always ask if bartering is on the table. So hope you got something out of it, and please share, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Man, I like comments. So especially on a subject like this. Now, all this being said, I realize this doesn't work in all, if not most, situations. But like I said, with a little bit of patience, it does work out. Now, I have purchased things to buy and resell, but it's difficult for me to place a value on a Duster or Dart or Barracuda because I just don't think they're worth what a lot of people are paying, as silly as it sounds. I'm not talking about a 70 Superbird or a 71 Hemi Cuda or something like that. There's value there. But the run-of-the-mill cars, it's difficult for me to sell them. I realize that a lot of the parts you just plain can't barter for. So you'd have to buy it. I did barter many moons ago when my Duster had a shark tooth grill. For whatever reason, I kind of went on this thing where I had to get my bartering fix. A guy had some parts that I wanted. One of them was an air gap intake, miscellaneous other things, and he gave me cash, the air gap intake, and some other parts for that shark tooth grill. Now, I kind of kicked myself after the fact because I should have kept the shark tooth grill. But what do you do? It's you win some, you lose some. And who would have thought that these parts would go for as much as they're going for? So I made out in the deal at the time. But now it's debatable. But yeah, like I said, it's fun. It's one of them things. It's kind of a rush to you get something that you want, somebody else gets something that they want, and you don't sometimes have to shell out any cash to do it. So all parties are happy. Sometimes I've sold parts just to help out a younger enthusiast. One example is a disc brake K member for spool mount, disc brake K member for an A body. I should have kept it, but I was helping a guy out, so I sold it to him for very little money, just to help the guy out. So that's kind of the way you keep the hobby going, I think. A lot of people just go for the money, and that's fine for them. Just doesn't work with the way I do things. I like the fact that you can have these cars and enjoy them for very little cash outlay. So it works out. So I hope you get something out of it. Like I said, please leave a comment. I'm interested to see what other people say about this, or the way they do things. I think it's a fun aspect of the hobby. And hope you have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.